Hello, nerds!
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 Hello, nerds! Brian?
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds.
Hello, nerds.
Good morning, folks. This is a audience panel. So first of all, thank you, Brian, Kristen, and Nell, for taking time out of your day to join us for this nerds discussion. For everybody out there, we're going to talk about, kind of current events, whatever the hot topics of the day are. Luckily, this year, there's no shortage of really interesting things going on in our great country. Before we dive into that, maybe we'll start with just some quick introductions. Brian, Kristen, and then Nell, if you could just tell us where you're joining from, a little bit about yourself, and maybe like if there's a particular hot topic that you're really kind of following or interested in, then we can go from there.
So I'm joining here from New Hampshire. I'm one of the lucky few people who's actually able to vote for Andrew when he was still running his campaign. I got to meet him a number of times. And as a former state representative here, I've met a lot of presidential candidates, but Andrew really persuaded me with his sincerity and his data-driven solutions, and persuaded me that universal basic income solves an awful lot of problems for America. And so the project that I work on is the Phoenix Congress, and we're trying to flip the model of how we do elections by writing legislation first and then offering it to candidates, Republicans and Democrats, in exchange for votes. And universal basic income is one of the key planks. So,
love it. Yeah, almost a little bit more like a direct democracy, like the Swiss way. Yeah.
Trying to unionize the electorate so we can band together instead of trusting Republicans and Democrats to represent us, because they're failing.
All right. Well, welcome, Brian. We'll have to dive in. I'd love to hear more about what it was like on the ground in New Hampshire, watching it all unfold. Kristen, you're joining from New York, is that right?
Yes, I'm in Suffolk County, Long Island. My town is Smithtown, New York. I would say that we are a Trump town. And, it's very wild where I am in the redneck of New York. And myself, I started volunteering for Andrew Yang, in a very, I would say in a minimal way compared to most Yang Gang. And in the springtime last year, and I'm really hoping that some of what the Yang Gang was initially galvanized around continues to grow. Sort of starting from hey, we're all at the table and we want the same things. Let's not care about where we came from, who we voted for in the past. Let's just work on the solutions and be problem solvers. So that's one of the reasons why I like to support Nerds for Humanity now, because, there's still a lot of work to be done even without candidate Yang. And so I'm just hoping that we can continue to move the platform issues forward.
Right on. Yeah, you could argue there's more work for us now that there isn't an active campaign than before. Now, you've been volunteering a lot for a variety of Yang Gang congressional campaigns, right? Tell us a little bit about where you're coming from and yourself.
Yeah, so, everyone knows me by Nell, right? My name's Nelson Nieves, but I like being called Nell because some of my closest friends call me Nell. So when I decided to just get on Twitter, I said, I'll put Nell Nieves and let everybody call me Nell, But I'm from Queens, New York, not too far from Kristen. The way I got involved was I actually went to The View to see Andrew Yang's big announcement. And that was fun. If you see the video of Andrew Yang giving his big announcement, like as soon as he said his announcement, they cut straight to me, and you see me like you know, clapping. But to be honest, I mean, I wish that this would have been my reaction. If I knew I was on TV, this is what I would have done after his announcement. You know, like super excited. But
Yeah.
So the day I went to the View, afterwards, a group of us, Yang Gang, we went to go eat at a Chinese food restaurant. You know, I love Chinese food, Tom.
I do.
So we went to a Chinese food restaurant. I met Kristen there, actually. She was there. And Jonathan Herzog showed up. He gave a speech and spoke about his vision, what he wanted for New York 10. And I decided to sign up, you know, just as a volunteer. And ever since then, I joined with Blair. Then I've joined with Badrun Khan. So I've worked as a graphic designer for a few different campaigns. And now I'm working on Erica Rhodes' campaign, and I'm also a graphic designer for Humanity Forward, actually. So I'm doing a lot of different things, and it's been a lot of fun. But yeah, I've been Yang Gang since 2019, the first debate. And for me, to see that people even today still don't know who Andrew Yang is, but they hate Donald Trump, it doesn't make any sense to me, you know?
Yeah, it's there's still, I mean, his awareness certainly has gone up since 19, but there's still a bunch of people who don't know, which is why I don't know, maybe this is a good segue for you, Brian. Like after the New Hampshire results and suspension, I was totally not only not ready for that, I really didn't agree with it, because I was like, hey, the message still needs to get out there. Like we didn't support, it wasn't conditional on making it to the White House. It was also part of a, you know, a longer term movement. What was it like on the ground in New Hampshire, being at the death place of the Yang 2020 campaign?
So I'd been following Andrew Yang since he was the first or second candidate to declare. So right since the very beginning, before Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
And and so watching his campaign, like, you know, take root and just inspire people all over the country was really great. But after Iowa, you know, I've observed a lot of campaigns here in New Hampshire, and so when he didn't do very well in Iowa, like we knew he needed a strong finish here in New Hampshire, and when that didn't happen, he made the right choice. He looked at the numbers and he said, you know, I need to suspend the campaign, and it took me completely by surprise, because that's not what a politician would do, right? Joe Biden did so bad in New Hampshire that he fled the state before the results were announced and took off. But he stuck in the race, and it paid off for him. Andrew did the logical thing, but it just drove home the point that he's not a politician. He's a data-driven father who cares about the country that our kids are going to inherit, and wants to see solutions that are going to benefit everyone. So,
yeah. Well, I'm glad. It sounds like you were much more pragmatic about it. I
tried. I mean, Tom, I was out there waving signs, you know, at the busy intersections before the day before the primary, trying to generate, knocking on doors, you know. But his ground game was, there were things that could have been done better here in New Hampshire, but unfortunately it doesn't change the fundamental dynamic, which is if the party doesn't, you know, support you, if you're an outsider, it makes it really, really hard to gain traction.
Do you think had he stayed in, it would have actually like diminished his influence in sort of for future runs?
I don't, because I think he probably would have done what the other candidates did and drop out right before Super Tuesday. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think the outcome would have been the same, but he got to the logical conclusion before the other candidates did.
Were you surprised at the New Hampshire results? Because like Iowa was such a mess. Like I was ready to just say like, well, who knows? It's just weird. And New Hampshire, I was thinking, oh, that's more independent-minded folks, some libertarians thrown in there. Could be okay.
I had gone out and knocked on doors, you know, the last couple weekends before, and you know, it's one thing to be on Twitter and it's great, such great energy, the Yang Gang and everything, but then you go out and you knock on people's doors and they're like, no, Andrew Yang, no, and it was really sobering to get that message from people. So I wasn't as
you weren't surprised. What was the biggest objection? What was the reason when they say no? Was it they didn't know him, or they didn't like UBI, or something else?
It was both. A lot of them was they were looking for somebody who could beat Donald Trump, and so electability was a really strong strong factor. And then just questions about universal basic income was also a thing.
Nell, you're involved with a lot of different Yang Gang campaigns, and you're pretty active on social.
Yep.
What's your take on sort of the gang's collective energy and activities lately? Brian made a good point that we were really a force on Twitter and social during the campaign. I feel like it has changed. The energy has changed, and I'm curious what your perspective is
Yeah.
on.
Well, I mean, well, I think it's true. We were a force during the campaign, and but we proved during the DNC that we're still a force online by getting Andrew actually at the convention actually speaking. But my take on the Yang Gang now, I mean, it's very mixed. I mean, everybody's kind of like going their way. That the reason I got into Twitter, I've been a member of Twitter since 2009. But I never really used it and really became active until Andrew Yang suspended. That's when I said, no, I gotta, I can't lose Andrew's voice, but it just seems like everybody's all over the place when it comes to Yang Gang. We still believe in the core values of the policies that Andrew brought to the table. That's pretty much what I see. But it's just everybody has their own opinion, and there's no like leader right now. You know what I mean? Like we're kind of like vagabonds, I guess, if you want to say, right? But that's my viewpoint.
Kristen, what's the vibe? You live in Trump country. One of the areas of tension with the Yang Gang was basically a lot of folks not being ready to kind of jump on the Biden bandwagon, and were really still kind of disappointed with the nomination, or never really wanted to support a traditional candidate. It was Yang or nothing. What's your read from where you are?
So the any blue will do are still any blue will do. I want to say there was a very large Warren group over here, a lot of Warren support, and they just sort of folded in. The weird thing about Biden is that when collecting signatures, when your boots are on the ground during the whole, Democratic, election to figure out who the candidate's going to be, nobody heard about anybody volunteering for Biden because it was literally establishment. And then when you see the names that came out to who was supporting Biden into the convention, they're all the already established, former Congress people, former state assembly. So these people were never door knocking. It was all through the good old network. And I don't want to say boys network because it's equally men and women. But yeah, it's and now it's really a waiting game. So we were saying amongst some of my friends over here that everybody's already got their mind made up, but we don't know who most of the people are going to go with, or if they're going to sit out. Because everything was so contentious in 2016, nobody's putting lawn signs up except for really like die hard on either side. Like they're ready to have their home vandalized because they put up their signs. There's somebody that's on a main road around here that is waving a flag that says Trump 2020, fuck your feelings. And it has created like huge uproar between people being like, how can the town allow this profanity on someone's front lawn? This is my right for freedom. So, yeah, we think that everybody's already decided. There's nothing that Trump's going to do that's going to shock anybody more than, the ET Expo before he was elected. But I think now it's just that you see that nobody was able to rein him in the way that people thought. And that the monkey wrench he threw into the system was like way beyond anybody could have even imagined. That, it's just like the election's already over here. We just don't know what the results are.
So when you heard about the Woodward tapes and about basically Trump acknowledging, in the comfort of his own office that it was 5 times more deadly than the flu, it does transfer through the air. And this was like in February, I think, when he was saying these things. You don't think there are some Trump supporters who will say, whoa, this guy was lying to us for 6 months?
Because the QAnon thing has really created this. This is like, and I don't know if everybody's old enough to remember this, but I remember watching Days of Our Lives as a child. And it was a pretty, okay, fantasy soap opera or whatever else. And then one day, the Dr. Marlena or whatever gets visited by an alien. And at that point, some people diverged and were like, okay, this soap opera has gone way too off the track. And other people are like, oh no, this is just like, this is the way it's supposed to be. And this is how I kind of feel like right now, we've seen that this has gone way off the track, but QAnon has created a storyline that people can grasp to and say, no matter what he does, he's doing it for the better of everybody that we don't know and we can't factually support.
Right.
So.
And I would imagine that whole QAnon crew is just a fringe kind of small
They're waving
percentage.
their flags and taking caravans across the major highways in Long Island on the weekends. Like, I am shocked to see how many, not only, okay, Trump flags going, but the QAnon flags, I'm like, whoa, this is a whole new level of, fanaticism. I don't even know how to put it, just because you can't back up anything that they're saying. It's like they all believe in a black hole that's going to save them, and there's nothing that can substantiate what happens in the black hole.
Now, have you encountered? I see these Q types kind of chirping up on Twitter from time to time. I convince myself that they are just a sort of fringe element, that's not representative of the country. Are you hearing about it more, or because it's so outlandish? I can't imagine rational people buying into it.
Honestly, I am so involved with everything that I'm doing behind the scenes for candidates and stuff that I haven't really kept up with QAnon and what exactly it is.
Yeah.
I'm picking up on a few things that Kristen is saying, and it just reminds me of what I'm seeing actually on Facebook. I'm a Republican that converted to Democrat because I wanted to vote for Andrew Yang. And what I'm seeing on Facebook, like 90% of my the friends I have on Facebook are evangelical Christians or have that type of Republican background. And so what I'm seeing is even if Trump was to admit to doing something wrong, the people on my Facebook group, well, some of them, right, are so I don't know how else to say, but anyway, even if he was to admit it, they still defend him, and they still defend whatever it was, and they'll say, "Oh well, he didn't mean it." You know what I mean? He didn't mean it that way, and I just don't understand. Even when the evidence is right in front of their face, it's not. They don't see it, or they just don't want to believe it, or they just Trump can do nothing wrong. That's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, it reminds me of there are some kind of dysfunctional relationships where one part of the couple is like clearly doing terrible things and just unhealthy for both, but then the other part of the couple will convince themselves that I can change this person, I can help them, they're really great.
But is that Stockholm syndrome or something?
It's an interesting vibe. I mean, Brian, what's going on in New Hampshire? Are you sensing any of this conspiracy stuff? I mean, because like the premise of QAnon is that Trump is part of it. From what I understand, is that Trump is saving us from like a satanic conspiracy, right?
I don't know. I don't know anything about the QAnon stuff, but I see that Trump is a salesman, and that's the thing that he's not. Yeah, he's lying. He lies all the time, but he's doing it in the way of a used car salesman. Like, yeah, you know, I knew the brakes were bad, but I really wanted to sell this car. And so, yeah, he knew that there were problems, but he doesn't want to advertise them. He wants to sell himself. And he does it in such a persuasive way that, like you've said, people are convinced that he's looking out for their best interest, even though there's a lot of evidence that he really isn't. And so,
yeah,
you mentioned the Access Hollywood tape from 4 years ago coming out,
right.
and you know, and so our incumbent Senator Kelly Ayotte was running for re-election, and after she heard that, she said, you know, in good conscience, I can't vote for Donald Trump, and that cost her some Republican support, her unendorsement of Donald Trump, and cost her the election. So, you know, Republicans are in a tough spot. What do they have to stick with Trump, and man, he's got a lot of baggage.
Yeah, it's so crazy. Like, if you went back in time and you told me, oh, a Republican nominee is going to be on, like, wife number 3 will have been on tape talking about grabbing people's private parts, will be on tape lying basically about what he knew, you know, basically lying to his supporters and telling people, you know, not to take something seriously when he knew it was deadly. You know, anti-free trade. Like, it's crazy that this is the Republican Party of 2020.
And what upsets me is that we're going through this rhino and dino, you know, Republican in name only, Democrat in name only. So, you know, both sides are so fractured within themselves, and they keep on trying to hold on to this, you know, authenticness of their party. Yet if they, you know, it's so rare that you even find a Democrat or Republican who has read their party platform, who's not an elected official. You know, maybe the support staff has read the platform, hopefully. And they just cannibalize each other. And on the Republican side, Republicans who are not Trump Republicans cannot speak out because, as Brian mentioned, it's political suicide. You're liable to be hung out to dry in your own neighborhoods, you know, lose your fundraising. And it's crazy because, you know, you have John Kasich who goes and speaks at the DNC to hopefully move more moderate Republicans over, and yet they can't talk about it with each other. So that's why we don't know what's going to happen in the election. That's why every vote matters, because nobody's coming out and speaking what they're going to vote. And a lot of people are lying about it because when they get into the booth, it's their choice. They don't ever have to come clean about if they did or if they didn't.
Well, you know, a lot of the people, I think, that are, especially evangelicals, are they're voting based on. And by the way, I'm evangelical Christian myself, but I'm for Yang, so that's different, you know. But a lot of the people that I see they're like a one issue voter, so they're choosing based on abortion, and that's it. They don't want to hear anything else. They don't want to hear about the economy. All they think about is they're killing babies, and I can't be for that. You know what I mean? And so they put the Democratic Party under that umbrella of they're just killing babies, but they're not looking at the whole picture. Just like you said, Tom, you know, years ago, if we had heard a Republican running for president under those pretexts, I mean, nobody would vote for that guy, right? But here we are, you know, and they're voting for him because they see somebody who's defending Christianity, and you know and that's, you know, I want a president who will defend my religion and will defend my beliefs. I do, believe me, but at the same time, we all recite and this is something I've said, we all recite the Pledge of Allegiance, and we all say the last 5 words with liberty and justice for all. And that, what does that mean? It doesn't mean, you know, liberty and justice just for Christians. It means liberty and justice for everyone, for Muslims, for Buddhists, for, you know, everybody, you know, basically, you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, any religion or
Yeah,
no religion at all.
or no religion at all. So I can't expect to, that I'm just going to vote for someone who's just defending me or my religion. This is America, where we're a mixed pot.
Mhm.
We're a mixed pot of different people with different beliefs and different backgrounds, and we should all respect one another.
Yeah, it is ironic that the country was founded by people who were persecuted for their religious beliefs,
Yep.
and now we're trying to divide each other by our religious kind of affiliations. But Brian, what are your thoughts on what's going to happen on November 3rd? Do you have a similar concern that Kristen does, which is like it's a bit of a crapshoot, like we don't know what people are going to do. What are they going to show up? What are they going to do when the curtains are behind them, or when they're kind of filling out their ballot privately? Do you think it's going to be close, or what do you think?
I think there's a lot of truth to what Kristen's saying, is that we have terrible choices, right? The Republicans and Democrats have given us lemons again, and there doesn't seem to be a way to make lemonade out of the situation. So people are just hoping that something will come along, maybe a giant comet will strike the earth and they won't have to decide, or that some responsible adult will step up. But eventually people are just going to have to hold their nose and pick for the lesser of two evils. And there's a strong case to be made that that's Joe Biden. I do have to say about Donald Trump, though, that he hasn't started any new wars. And I was very concerned 4 years ago that he was gonna use that nuclear button and he was gonna do something crazy. And I'm very glad that I was wrong and that he hasn't started any new wars. And I'm
We
afraid
have a couple
that
months left.
yeah.
That is
so I don't know what's
true.
gonna
I mean,
happen.
I do think one of his truly authentic values is a reluctance to engage in the international world, which also means a reluctance to engage in military kind of conflicts. And I think that I actually applaud that. I think we need more kind of judicious use of international power, military power. So I will grant him that. I do feel like the COVID crisis response has been really unacceptable. And you got to imagine, like, there will be another crisis in 4 years. It could be COVID-20. It could be more fires, floods. It could be some foreign activity. Who knows? And I just wonder, like, we've seen how this guy acts in a crisis. He's not the calm, I'm going to break down the facts, I'm going to solve this problem, I'm going to bring us together type, which I think Andrew would have been.
And even worse than that, he's not let me ask the experts what's the best thing to do and just follow their advice.
Yeah.
Like, if at least he did that, that would be great. But instead, he flies by the seat of his pants,
or worse, even like
work out.
sidelines them and undermines them and mocks them as being eggheads or whatever. And it's just it's terrible. Like, I was just reading yesterday about these reports on Health and Human Services, like editing like CDC reports and suppressing kind of data going out to scientists because it would be unfavorable. And I mean, this is the kind of thing, when I grew up in the 80s, we would think, oh, these poor developing countries, these banana republics, like, look how they're run, like, not like America, where it's about, facts and expertise and doing kind of the hard stuff. And now we're that country that's doing this crazy stuff. And you're like, what do we need to bring election observers here?
Yeah, well, I mean, I can say, when Andrew Yang suspended, I didn't know who I was going to vote for. And obviously I don't want to vote for Trump. I didn't want to vote for Trump, but it was something that it was still under consideration because I wanted to see who was going to end up being the nominee. And what really sold it for me and said, you know what, I need to vote for Biden, is when I saw the way Trump handled the Cliff Floyd incident. All of that debacle and just just everything that went down, and what I heard about what he did with that photo shoot at the church. That for me was the straw. I said no. There's absolutely no way I can vote for someone who can't just stand up against racial injustice. And even though he's never really stood up against racial injustice in the past 3 years, but that was the last straw. It was I just couldn't, and just getting from there to now, it's like I don't. This is Trump's America, and this is something I tweeted about not too long ago. I said everything we're seeing right now, this is Trump's America. This is what it looks like, and if you want to see this same thing happening for the next 4 years, go ahead and vote for Trump. If you don't want to see there hasn't been any president that has divided this country more than we've seen in this, even in our lifetime. No one has there hasn't been this division ever that I've. Go ahead.
See, for me, it's a different sort of litmus test that has driven me away from Trump. And I would say that the icing on the cake for me was the RNC speeches at the White House. Like, this is supposed to be the people's house. What was he doing? And how can anybody who supports our just very basic democracy be not be appalled by seeing one of the parties parading their party at the White House? So for me, excuse everything, whatever you want, all up until that point. That point, you say what we're voting for, what we stand for, everything right there, totally gone.
And Donald Trump.
Go ahead, Brian.
Donald Trump is certainly exacerbating the situation, this polarization. But it's not just him. I mean, if there was a President Hillary Clinton, I can't imagine that the country would be, the country would still be very polarized over that. And so he's a salesman. He's taking advantage of the situation, and polarization unfortunately sells. And which was so appealing about Andrew Yang and his message of humanity first, that brought together Republicans and Democrats and independents and said, parents and people who wanted to see problems solved.
And Brian, I think one of the things that you hit on is that if it were Clinton, then we're dealing with another thing of having these family dynasties in government. And that's also very hard to swallow, that you had, Bush, and then we're looking at a Clinton, and then you had all the Kennedys. And so you saw Trump as this outsider. And then you see people with these crazy T-shirts, about all his children who are going to be future presidents.
Yeah. I mean, half of the people that spoke at the RNC were his family, including himself. There were 12 people that spoke, and 6 of them were all Trumps. So
it's I mean, even his cabinet, it started out like I didn't agree with his policy views, but I was cautiously optimistic that he had some pretty experienced, serious people with some gravitas in his cabinet. And they're literally all gone. They're all gone. And I know now Trump says that they're all losers and they were begging for their jobs and on their knees and crying and all this stuff. But I don't know, like all of them were just complete, and didn't he hire them then? Like, so why did you hire these people?
It's funny because he ran. When he ran, he said, I'm going to have the best people.
Yeah.
The best people. And
I know the best people. Yeah.
Yeah, the best people are now all convicts.
And that Kellyanne, this really killed me. I saw the Kellyanne Conway interview, the farewell interview on Fox. So Kellyanne, one of his #1 soldiers out there all the way, and she gave her resignation and she needs to homeschool, spend more time with her family. And she supported him. She gave the best pitch for him on that interview about how everybody else is all talk about women's rights, but Trump actually plucked me out and took me and supports women. And man, like, she is so good at what she does. And that whole drama saga with her and her husband, I can't wait to see how that ends up in 2 years because he has been so vocal about his disdain for the Trump administration.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean and also like the RNC convention, there was a lot of airtime spent for talking about Trump's great record with women, and a lot of African American and Black speakers talking about how he's been so fantastic. I watched that thinking like, oh well, this is kind of just trying to project an image. This is a photo op moment for the campaign, trying to win over maybe some suburban voters who are a little concerned about being associated with an administration that's very could be viewed as anti-minority and anti-women. Brian, do you think that convention did its job for the Republicans? Like, do you think was any effect, or everybody's already locked in for the last year?
Yeah, I think if you like Trump, then it didn't do anything to change your mind. If you didn't like him, it probably didn't change your mind either. And I don't know. I didn't really watch the convention.
Yeah, it was.
But judging by the polls, he didn't seem to get much of a bounce from it. So
yeah, it seems like everybody's kind of pretty stable at the moment. If you guys want to make some predictions, who do you think will win, and when will we know it?
I'll start with that one. What do you mean? This election? Who will win this election?
Yeah.
Presidency?
Uh-huh.
Well, I'm on record consistently always saying that I think Donald Trump won this election the moment Andrew Yang suspended the campaign.
Oh no.
That's honestly my belief. I am voting for Biden and hoping that I'm wrong, to be honest. But that's where I stand.
So you're predicting Trump will win, and do you think it'll be pretty clear on the evening of November 3rd, or what do you think is gonna?
I'm sorry. To me, it was very clear the night that Andrew Yang suspended the campaign.
Oh, so you don't think it's going to be close? You think it's going to be a strong victory?
No, I don't think it'll be a strong victory. I think it's going to be close. I'm hoping and praying. I mean, if Biden wins, I will be the happiest man right now. But because I get to see Trump out of there. But I honestly think that he won re-election, and I'm just hoping for the best. That's all I'm hoping for.
Kristen, what's your prediction?
I am going to agree with Nell. I think this is a Trump win right now.
Oh no!
Based on where we are right now, I think it's totally a Trump win. I think that the Democrats are not yet speaking to the people that are going to turn out and change this election. And until they can start to speak in regular people terms and understand how the normal person is getting by and what makes sense to them, it's all Trump. I do think it's going to come down to Florida. I think we're going to have a hanging Chad situation, and it's going to go on for weeks, and we're going to rip each other apart over it. I hope I'm wrong, but that's today. Unless the virus does something crazy or we get, something else that's going to totally pull the country together, this is totally a Trump win right now.
Brian?
Can I answer that a little different way? I want to predict who's going to lose in this election. And I think when we wake up November 4th, it's going to be the American people who have lost. That there's going to be 40 million people in this country living below the poverty line. That there's going to be 2 million people waking up behind bars. And we're going to be a country that has over 800 foreign military bases on this planet. And nothing is going to change, no matter who gets elected, Trump or Biden, unless we the people can find a way to make our voices heard and really reform the system.
That's kind of sad. I see I'm having some technical difficulties, but I can hear you guys on audio. I'm going to give you my prediction, which is I think that that Trump is going to lose. I don't think it's going to be obvious on November 3rd, but I think by November 4th or 5th, we will have a Biden win. And I'm also not optimistic that we're going to be way better off as a country. I think it'll be more like putting gauze on a wound, and it won't be like fully healed, probably for a long, long time, because I would imagine Trump will not go quietly. I don't think it's going to be if he loses, I don't think he'll be a magnanimous, gracious, the people have spoken, democracy won tonight, that's the most important thing. I don't think he's going to do that kind of speech. And I worry that like, what will Congress be able to get done in 2021 when the next crisis hits? Not to mention, like, we're not out of this COVID thing. I know he's talking about, oh, we've already turned the corner or whatever. But as far as I can tell, there's still close to 1,000 people dying every day. And, that can't be a win. And who knows what's going to happen with these vaccines. But I'm a little bit kind of sobered by your predictions. You guys are not as... you're not counting down the days the way I am.
I think it's that a lot of people think that it just is going to be Biden. And I think they're taking it for granted the way that they took it for granted that it was just going to be Hillary and that she was going to slide back in. If people don't have the fear of another 4 years, they're just not going to go to the polls.
Well, Tom, if it makes you feel a little better, someone shared with me a video of a man that rightfully predicted the last 9 presidents since Reagan, and he actually predicted a Biden win. So for this year, so for whatever that's worth, I mean, he's predicted rightfully the last 9 presidents. So
just take a look at the Yang Gang. How many Yang Gang do you know who are actively campaigning for Biden right now, besides Andrew Yang?
That's true. You're right. You're right, Kristen. I'm not
voting for Biden, but I am not on the streets yet.
Yeah, I'm not. I haven't been. I'm voting for Biden, but you don't see me posting Biden-Harris 2020, or anything like that. Because to me, it's like I want them to win. Well, honestly, I don't want them to win, and I don't want Trump to win. I don't want any of them to win.
And Yang hasn't officially called the Yang Gang to arms specifically to be like, get on the streets and really back Biden. He's been kind of neutral on it as far as I've seen. Like, he's said that he's supporting Biden, but he will not judge you for however you vote. And maybe in this climate, that's just a little bit too Luke.
Yeah, well, I mean, he understands that 42% of us are not going to vote for Biden. So that's, it's a given that.
And Joe Biden was there. Joe Biden was there for decades and decades, and so he was there. He had his thumb in the pie for a lot of these problems that were created. And is he really the guy who can bring us a new vision for the 21st century? I mean, I met Joe Biden in 2006 during my first campaign for state representative here in New Hampshire when he was running for president back then. And and he was in his 60s. He was sharp and confident. And in 2020, I'm not. He's not the best guy to lead us. But these are the 2 choices we have. So people are going to decide November 3rd, and we'll see what happens.
Let me. I guess I might be the resident most enthusiastic about Biden on this panel, which is still like, I'm not like 10 out of 10 on this ticket, but I'm going with it. I could argue that Biden didn't have a lot of people on the streets for him in the primaries, and nobody was hashtagging Biden 2020, before South Carolina or even Super Tuesday. Frankly, everybody assumed he was done. So I think it's possible that there could be like this quiet stealth landslide where no one is thrilled, but we're all going to vote and we're all going to be like, Biden, fine, check it off. Right. And
that's the bumper sticker. Right.
And then maybe that's okay. Maybe that's okay because, at least we don't have to worry about 10 out of 10 craziness every day. And then we can prepare ourselves for 2024. Let me ask you guys as a closing out question. Also, if anybody has questions in the live audience, if you want to put it in the chat with caps question : then I'll try and pick a few out. I also want to thank all 3 of you for being channel members. I know there were some people who also wanted to get on the panel, but I had to offer it to members first since you guys helped make the content possible. So thank you for doing that. And if anybody wants to become a member, that is a privilege. So let me ask you guys this. What do you think is going to happen for 2024? And like, what's the future of where Yang goes, or where do you want to see Yang in the future?
As president, I want to see him in the Oval Office.
In 2024, you want him? You would want him to run again for president?
Yes, I would.
Absolutely, I agree.
And I'm even okay if it's not 2024, as long as he says that that's a commitment on the plan.
Mm-hmm.
So the timeline can change, but as long as I know that he still has his eye on that place, I'll follow him through.
Yeah, well, I think Andrew has said that if he sees that someone else takes the mantle, you know, and will push like his policies forward, he would probably step away and not, you know what I mean? But if he doesn't see those policies going forward, then he would step in. That I think I've seen him say. But in 2024, well, let me talk about 2020 for a second.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this is where because we don't know where Andrew's going to be in 2020, right now, other than right now he's just campaigning for Biden. I think he's waiting to see if Biden gets elected and if he gets offered a position.
Mm-hmm.
But if he doesn't, if Biden gets elected and doesn't offer him a position, or if Trump wins, then, you know, I think he may really seriously consider being mayor of New York. That's just my opinion. I have no facts to back that up, but I just feel that that's what, I mean, if I'm Andrew Yang, that's how I would think. You know, I'll see if I have a job in the White House first, and if I don't, then I'll go for New York mayor.
Kristen, would you be supportive of Mayor Yang?
I'm not in New York City. Nell's in New York City, so you know he can do what he wants. As far as Andrew Yang for mayor of New York, I think that's a curse more than a blessing in their political stepping stone.
You think so? I disagree. I think that like for instance, De Blasio, right? Okay, he's not the greatest mayor.
The worst mayor.
Okay. But De Blasio, I mean, he was mayor and he ran for president, right? While being mayor of New York. And I think that Andrew could become mayor of New York in 2021, and by 2024 he could still be running for president, even being mayor. And I think it would give him more of a national.
No, definitely it gives them the executive experience, and you know, when you go in pecking order like that. But I think once you get into the whatever's going on in New York right now, I think
it also cost him a little bit of his authenticity of being an outsider, of not being a politician.
Right, a sellout.
Running for mayor of New York, specifically with your eye on then moving up to run for president, you know, that's a little harder to sell.
It definitely, like, if you look at Giuliani, Bloomberg, and de Blasio, it hasn't been like a slam dunk launching point.
No, it hasn't. It hasn't.
Yeah.
But Obama was senator for 2 years.
Yeah.
You know, and like
Obama's magic.
Yeah.
Compare anyone to Obama.
But the thing is, you know, Obama came out of nowhere in 2006. What made Obama was that speech at the DNC. I didn't know who the heck Obama was at that time. I was still a Republican, and I just know everybody was talking about Obama, and I said, who the heck is this guy? And I never even saw the speech until this year. You know that, but I did hear about Obama because of that speech. And in 2008, I didn't vote for Obama. You know, to me, as a Republican, somebody told me, "Oh, he's for infanticide. He's for abortion." So me, as a Republican at that time, I said, "No, I'm a Christian. I'm not going to vote for someone who's for abortion. I'm not voting for Obama." So I didn't vote for Obama, but Obama won my vote in 2012. You know, and so that's where I started changing. Anyway.
Well, I hear you now. I mean, I think your broader point is that any opportunity for Yang to kind of raise his profile, his national profile, would be beneficial. And so I would 100% agree with you that a serious position in the Biden administration could be our next Joe Rogan moment, where it's a step change in Yang's reach. On the mayor thing, I don't know. I kind of feel like America would prefer a mayor from South Bend than New York City. No offense to New York City. I love New York City. My brother lived there. My father worked there. I used to live in New Jersey, so I love New York City. But I think a lot of Americans outside of the cities look at New York, and they think, well, that's not. People from there don't understand our problems, kind of thing. Would you agree with that, Nell? That New York has some baggage too with it, right?
New York does have baggage, but I mean, maybe I'm being selfish because I live in New York City, so I would really love to see Andrew Yang for president.
Yeah, I hear you.
And not only that, because if he ran for president, maybe he would institute some type of UBI, and I would benefit from it.
You're so ready to volunteer on that campaign.
I am so ready to volunteer on that campaign. I will design anything and everything for Andrew Yang in for him to be mayor, or listen, one of the reasons why I even decided to even start volunteering for campaigns is because I said to myself, during Yang 2020, all I ever did was buy merch and tell people about Andrew Yang, and follow YouTube channels and stuff. That's really all I did. Donate, buy merch, and that stuff during Yang 2020. But after the campaign was over, I said I got to do more. I have to do a lot. There's more that I can do. I can use my abilities to help people get into Congress, and so that's why I started volunteering. And one of my goals was actually, I said, when Yang announces that he's running 2024, I want to be a designer on that team. I don't care if I'm the lowest designer or the lowest position or whatever. I don't care what, but I want to be on that team. I want to help Yang make it to be president.
Ryan, let's get a answer from you from our audience question. We've been talking a lot about the presidency. Kyle wants to get your sense about House and Senate. There are people, old-fashioned folks, who believe that the legislative branch is a co-equal branch. I know that's kind of old-fashioned, but that there are people who believe that. What do you think of our prospects in the House and the Senate?
The prospects of seeing actual UBI legislation or any sort of consensus forming in the House and Senate? No. The problem is that the way that we do this is we have 435 candidates for Congress running around the country, each of them with their own platforms, their own ideas, their own promises. And then we stick them in one room and they can't come to any agreement. And the ones who get to wield the power are the ones who've been there the longest. And those are the ones who take the most corporate money. And so it's a terrible system the way that we have. And so the Phoenix Congress model is to flip that around. And we have one legislative package that we're offering to all of the candidates who are running for office, a take it or leave it offer that includes UBI, criminal justice reform, and military downsizing, and saying, look, this is one plan, take it or leave it. And if you guys can all agree on this, then we can really move this country forward. But clearly the system we have is very, very broken. And our kids don't deserve to inherit these problems. It's time for Generation X to step up and lead. I don't know if that answered the question.
No, it does. I mean, if I were to play it back, it sounds like which party controls the Senate by a couple seats, you don't feel like it's going to be a game changer. It's just going to be
the only thing the parties stand for these days is opposing the other one. I mean, we talked about the Republicans and Democrats don't stand for anything. All they do is they want to oppose each other in order to generate money for themselves, and it works. They generate a lot of outrage and polarization, but it doesn't solve the problems. So putting our faith in the same old model to produce change, I think, is insanity.
Nell, you've been volunteering on congressional campaigns. I'm going to ask you a question that you probably don't want to answer. Do you have a favorite? I mean, you've been working with a bunch of them. Which one do you think is most promising?
Do I have a favorite? What? A favorite
campaign that you're volunteering for Congress?
Well, I honestly, I love I love everybody that I'm working with, to be honest with you. Listen, it's a joy, it's a pleasure. I could talk about Blair and I could talk about Erica, and they're different, and yet they're both the same in the sense that they're both passionate women who really want to make change for their communities, and I admire them both very much. Right now, those are the two campaigns I'm working on.
What are you most excited about Blair, and what are you most excited about Erica?
Well, Blair, what I'm most excited about Blair is the fact that um, there hasn't that state is a very Republican state, and her district has been very Republican for I don't want to I forget how many years, but I think it's like 100 years probably. And so not only would she flip that seat for the first time in this many years, but she would be the first woman that's elected in her district, and so I'm really excited about that. I think Blair, in terms of how she is, she's a mom, she's a business owner. She understands, people like you and me, the regular average person, because she is one of us. I've known Blair since before. Um, I've known Blair since before she decided to run. Her and I were friends on Facebook, and we would just, sometimes message each other, or we'd be on the same comments, and um, yeah. So that's what I'm most excited about Blair. In terms of Erica, I'm most excited for her because I think, she started now, and her election is in 2022. I think she has a real chance of winning. She's out there all the time, out there in her community doing, she's working now in school and she's a teacher, but then after work she goes out and she's talking to people, she's helping people, she's a very hard worker, very passionate. And I think because of the time that Erica has to campaign, I think this will give her a really, really good chance of winning her district. So I'm really excited about seeing that happen.
Right on. Well, we only have another minute left, so why don't I wrap up by asking each of you to share some either closing thoughts, or if there's a call to action that you want the audience to know about. Like maybe we'll start with you, Brian. I have a feeling people may be curious about the Phoenix Congress thing. So any closing thoughts?
Yes, and sorry about that. My battery died. I'm in my daughter's room now with the where the laptop charger is. Yeah, the website is phoenixcongress2020.com, and the two-party system is just so broken. We've got to find a different model. And in the 21st century, we don't need to all sit in one room in Washington, D.C. to collaborate and hash things out. We can do it across the internet. There's better solutions and better models. And I think that's the only way to really move this country forward, is to find a different path.
Thank you.
And UBI is a big part of it.
We'll have to check it out. Maybe we'll get you back on the show, Brian, to dig into the platform a little more in depth.
Thanks for having me here, Tom. Appreciate it.
You bet. Kristen, any parting thoughts?
Yeah, I'll shamelessly plug Nerds for Humanity. I'll say that, initially when I first started turning on to Yang 2020, I realized that I didn't have enough time to invest in supporting the campaign and moving these grassroots movements forward. So one of the ways to support is by finding someone like Nerds for Yang, Nerds for Humanity, and sponsoring them. However you can figure out a way to do it, like, share, get your friends and family involved, pick out a really great episode that can be a conversation starter. This is the way that we make change happen. It doesn't happen in one election cycle. It happens over time. This movement of what Tom has accomplished is unbelievable. It has so much, so many places that it can go and it can grow. And there are constantly new people, new guests that he has. And you can tell by the caliber of guests that's on and how focused they are into the interview that this is a really great place to be and show some support. So I highly encourage people, vote, support with your wallet, because it does make a huge difference, especially for startup channels like this.
Thank you, Kristen. Yeah, and if you guys listen to Yang Speaks, we took a good chunk of our membership dues and put it towards promoting this channel, which now has helped me line up some future guests who hadn't heard of us and were like, oh yeah, maybe I'll come on your show. So thank you for supporting our channel, all three of you, and for reminding people that it's a great way to get the content out and grow the conversation. Like as an example with Brian's work, you know, I'm looking forward to getting him back on the show. We could dig into the Phoenix, and then it kind of helps everybody. It's this virtuous circle. So Nell, why don't we give you the final word?
Yeah. Yes, I have.
And thanks for the super chat during an interview. I love it.
Thank you, Kristen. And yeah, well, here's the thing. You know, that's one thing. Just like Kristen said, I really, by the way, admire that, because you know, during the campaign I always donated, but also whenever I can, I you know, that's why I'm a member of this channel. I'm a member of Paget's. I'm a member of Zach and Matt. So yeah, anyway, so wanted to also second that what Kristen said. But final words, I would say November's around the corner, and we have congressional candidates, David Kim as well. I'm not working under David Kim or anything like that, but David Kim and Blair, you know, if you can find somehow to donate to these candidates that are running this year to help them out, to push them just a little further, you know, I would request that you know, donate. I think most of the people that are in the chat and watch this channel are already participating, but you know, it's that's really my parting words right there. But thank you for having us. I really appreciate this. It's
Thank
great.
you, Tom.
Yeah,
Thank you,
no,
Tom.
it's been great. And my ask of everybody watching this either live or on replay is, whether you love Biden or you love Trump or any other candidate, please vote on November 3rd or beforehand, ideally. You know, a lot of people, they did die for our right to vote. I mean, literally. And so the worst thing you can do is stay home. Even if you vote for Trump, I obviously don't like Trump, but if you vote for Trump and you exercise your right, like, I respect that. But if you're grumbling about like the future and you don't like the present, but you're not participating even in the system as flawed as it is, like, just participate. Like, don't, please, the state of the country is at such a crucial point that whatever we decide to do as a country, let's all feel like we took part. And whether you're in a blue state or a red state, like, also the mandate for change will be important. So just keep that in mind. And thank you, Kristen, Nell, and Brian for coming on for the audience panel. With that, we're going to say goodbye, nerds.
Bye.
Goodbye, nerds.